That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about 28 Years Later, the 14th film directed by Danny Boyle, obviously the third in this zombie franchise that he started back in 2003. Sony Pictures is releasing the film June 20th, 2025.
Do I know a Danny Boyle film besides these three?
Well, he didn't do 28 Weeks Later.
Oh.
He produced that. That was directed by Juan Carlos Fresnadillo. Train Spotting and or its sequel.
Okay.
Trance, starring James McAvoy and Rosario Dawson. I believe I remember you watching that. I dragged you to a press screening of the Steve Jobs movie. I remember many years ago. 127 Hours. Of course, he won Best Picture for Slumdog Millionaire. And The Beach with Leonardo. My personal favorite that I think is underrated in his filmography is Life Less Ordinary from 1997.
Noted. What is 28 Years Later about? A quarantined family, Jamie, Isla, and their son Spike, live on an island refuge. Spike's venture across the causeway to find a doctor for his mother unleashes evolved alpha-infected and human cultists, exposing terrifying truths on the mainland. What is your pull quote?
Truths! Boyle's return to the zombie playground he reanimated so majestically over 30 years ago is a gangly hodgepodge of narrative elements which are never as scary as they are certifiably weird.
Mine. 28 Years Later is a chaotic, disorienting barrage of visuals and ideas that works more than it doesn't.
Yeah, I liked it more than I didn't, I think, but it reminded me actually of so many other films too.
As I sit here, I don't know what I would give this movie, so I'm hoping in 20 minutes I get to that conclusion.
I mean, it was shot notably on an iPhone 15 Pro Max, which is the longest narrative big budget feature to be filmed that way.
Oh, wow.
So, and I think after we saw it, we discussed kind of like that cobbled together narrative feeling was maybe due to some of that, but it also has a distinct look in that way.
Yeah. So the story is it's 28 years later from the introduction of the rage virus, and we know that Great Britain is under quarantine, and basically, I guess the other governments of the world are just letting all of the survivors fend for themselves. We need to get back to it. There's a lot about this movie that does not make sense to me. Mm-hmm. But there is a little family who's on this. It was giving me The Village vibes.
That was my first note, was that this was the life that the people in The Village wanted, the M. Night Shyamalan.
Well, and for a brief moment I thought, oh, is this going to be set up like The Village, where these people have quarantined themselves not knowing that everything's back to normal?
Or something.
But it's not.
It also reminded me of A Quiet Place, well, both the first, A Quiet Place Part 2, where those people do have that island idol. Yeah. Yeah,
actually. But anyway, so this family is part of this community that's on a smaller island off Scotland. And we focus on Aaron Taylor Johnson is Jamie, his wife Isla, and their son Spike.
And Jodie Comer, notably, is Isla.
So I guess in their community, a rite of passage for, I'm assuming it's all teenagers. They don't make it seem like it's only for boys, but teenagers go to the mainland to learn how to kill the infected. So Jamie takes his son Spike to the mainland, and things go left real quick. And that's when I don't remember the other two films, so I don't know if this concept of alphas was around.
No.
So we're introduced to this idea of they're like evolved.
Not in this way, no.
Infected. And Jamie and his son narrowly escape. And the causeway is like this walkway from their island to the mainland that, of course, when the tide is low, they're able to utilize. So they narrowly escape being attacked by an alpha. But a couple of things are discovered when Jamie and his son get back to land. Spike sees his dad having sex with a woman who's not his mother. And it's important to know the mother, Isla, is very ill.
Mm-hmm. Bedridden even.
Bedridden and a little too crazy to make sense.
Yeah, based on what her diagnosis is.
What we learn her actual condition is. But Spike sees his dad having sex with a woman who's not his mom. Also, while they were on the mainland, Spike saw a big, fire pit, which doesn't really make sense if the mainland is only occupied by the infected, because presumably they don't know how to start fires. And his dad, Jamie, plays it off like, I don't know what that is.
Prometheus.
But when Spike gets back to the mainland, he talks to this older gentleman, and he's like, well, what did you see out there? Oh, I saw this big fire pit. Oh, that was Dr. Kelson. Is that his name?
Yes.
That's Dr. Kelson. There's a doctor? I was told there were no doctors around. Yeah, he's a doctor. Oh, so he could help my mom. Well, if your dad didn't want to tell you about Dr. Kelson, I'm not going to say shit.
Dr. Kelson is insane in the membrane.
So the next day, Spike confronts his dad. Why didn't you tell me about Dr. Kelson? And also, why you cheating on my mama? And he gets mad and like...
he backhands that kid.
Yeah, but then Spike pulls a knife on his dad, which of course he can't take his dad down, but the dad agrees to leave. And then Spike's crazy ass absconds with his mother to the mainland. He causes a distraction that allows them to just walk on over. And this kid has the intention of getting his mom some help.
If this 12-year-old can do that to get off the island, I don't know how this community has lived for 3 decades with the zombie threats.
Well, that's another question I have, so we'll get back to it. But he gets on the island. They find Dr. Kelson, played by Ralph Fiennes, who I think kind of saved the movie for me. I really liked him.
Giving me Brando and Apocalypse Now vibes.
Yes, the vibe when Ralph Fiennes joins the story is very different. But it turns out that he's not this crazy man living on the mainland. He is a doctor, and he's basically built this memorial for all the people who have died, which makes no sense to me.
Memento Mori.
And he somehow evaded attack from all these creatures infected.
There are choices that are made specifically by his character that we need to talk about.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But Dr. Kelson examines the mother and says, your mom has cancer. I don't know where it started, but it's metastasized. It's clearly gotten to her brain because she's batshit crazy. She's going to die soon. So I thought, I teared up because he's talking about there are different kinds of death, and the best kind is a peaceful death. And, you know, you have to never forget love. And so he has the mom and the son, say they love each other. And then he basically euthanizes the mom. It's also important to know when Spike and his mom get to the island, they are rescued at a point by this Swedish soldier named Eric.
It's like a NATO soldier.
And while they're with him, they come upon a pregnant infected, and Isla delivers that damn baby.
Who's gone into a isolated train. Also, like, there's a Quiet Place scene kind of like that, too.
And thanks to the magic of placenta...
That line I wrote down, whoa!
The baby's not infected. So...
Again, they can't test it. There's several many times Alfie Williams, who plays Spike, is like, the baby's not infected. Take care of the baby. The baby's not infected. You don't know that. You don't know that.
So...
You need to kill that baby.
So Ralph Fiennes euthanizes the mom and then tells Spike, you and this little baby need to go back to where you came from. So Spike goes back to his island, but he leaves the baby on the doorstep with a note, basically saying that he wants time alone on the mainland to discover. So the final scene of the film is probably the most batshit crazy, because Spike is just out there walking down the road looking at the things when he's attacked by a bunch of infected.
Well, he's cooking a fish.
He gets attacked, and he almost gets killed when Jack O'Connell pops up with a crew who look like they're from, I had said like Turbo Kid or something.
I wrote they're a death cult of toe-headed tracksuit wearing gymnastics led by a creepy hobgoblin.
Yeah, they're doing parkour. It's crazy. And so Jack O'Connell and his crew help fight off the infected who were going to kill Spike. And then Jack O'Connell asks Spike, do you want to join our crew? Where does Jack O'Connell come from? I think it's in the trailer, but in the trailer we see a bunch of kids watching Teletubbies.
Yes.
So Jack O'Connell is one of those kids 28 years prior, and his family gets attacked. And his dad is a preacher man. And the dad gives the son a necklace with a cross on it and says, always keep this and always keep the faith. So 28 years later, when we see Jack O'Connell, we see he's wearing that necklace. So that's the time.
But the cross is now upside down. And so the only person that could ever reach Spike is the son of a preacher man.
Ugh. That's it.
Yep, that's it. It's strangely kind of batshit, but not batshit enough.
Most of my notes are things that are confusing to me or just don't make sense. First of all, so Great Britain's just shit out of luck. Like,
well, it's like it's become Jurassic Park or Escape from LA. Like, it's just.
We see French soldiers. We know there were Swedish soldiers patrolling. We are told that like various militaries make sure that the island stays quarantined. I guess if they're going to let all the survivors just fend for themselves, why not just nuke the island? And because like we were talking after and you said like, wouldn't this virus mutate after a while? Wouldn't you want to just like get rid of it?
Well, which it has. There's an alpha named Samson who's very well endowed. That's kind of a strange, distracting spectacle to
I will say I do appreciate that they're naked because they wouldn't have clothes.
I do too. But Samson is the sired this newborn child that he keeps trying to get a hold of. I also thought of Lamb with Noomi Rapace for an instance there. But this baby isn't coming into the village. There's no way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just think that, you know, if there are 10 different storylines going on, maybe we should have focused on 5.
Well, it's just like having to have this child, the replacement child in a quiet place. And it's just like, now is not the time to have a baby and make yourself vulnerable to these creatures that can hear everything.
There are so many visual flourishes that it was disorienting, and a lot of them seem like fantastical. That kind of threw me off.
I think that, well, considering how it was filmed, it's pretty impressive.
It does look really cool, but it feels a little like this doesn't quite make sense when Jamie and Spike go to the mainland the first time and they get hemmed up by some of the infected. They hide out in a house. Mm-hmm. And then after a couple of hours, it's almost like the Wizard of Oz. There's like some sort of, it almost feels like there's a tornado and a stampede that caused the house to collapse. But then the dad says, oh, it's just an old house that collapsed. But it looked like something very different.
And it's mixed in with a really striking dream sequence that Spike is having where Jodie Comer is fashioned like a siren with glowing eyes in the water. Yeah. And it almost, it's red hued, but I was reminded of Bergman in a couple of those sequences, and Michael Nickvis as this cinematographer. And I think it's worth shouting out this cinematographer that Boyle is reuniting with, Anthony Dodd Mantle, who kind of grew out of the Dogma 95 movement, like The Celebration. You've seen his work in Dogville. I think it's really impressive how he seems to operate so well with restraint.
Yeah, it looks really cool. Okay, another major question I had.
That scene with the alpha chasing them, I think that's one of the most beautiful scenes in the film.
Well, that's my next question. So this alpha, who appears to be quite intelligent, and we're told that these people cross the causeway regularly. So this is not a once-in-a-lifetime thing. This is like very regularly they cross the causeway. But we see that this alpha sees them cross and then just runs across it. So this is the first time that this alpha thought to cross the causeway?
Well, there's people in the watchtower, so presumably they've had to kill these zombie creatures before. It's just that maybe after the years, less and less.
Yeah, but we're told that one alpha's been around for how long? Years.
That's what
Ray Fiennes says. This alpha, he calls him Samson, I think, has been around for years. So I thought it was very curious that not only did this alpha just now think, oh, I can just run across. Also, the alpha is very difficult to kill. So in every other instance, he doesn't seem afraid of being attacked. So I don't know why he'd be afraid of the...
Well, and then he isn't killed in that scene, and they stop him so that Aaron Taylor Johnson and his kid can get back in the village. But then the alpha just, retreats? He just goes back?
Okay, so then it appears that whenever the teenager who goes for the first time to the mainland, they have a welcome back party for them. And we're told that there are no rescue missions. So if you go, you need to know that if you don't come back, no one's looking for you. Mm-hmm. But they set up the party with the hope that, they will return. So they return, and it's a close call.
Yeah.
And then they're all partying, and no one mentions, like, hey guys, for the first time ever, and like an infected ran across the causeway. Uh-huh. I thought that was really weird.
Not only just any infected, an alpha. And also, they seem to... like a flock of wild birds announces him, and they're
it was like the crow, like he was controlling the crows.
Well, I was also thinking the dark half. That's another thing used in that Stephen King adaptation and the book. But and there's another scene where the woman is giving birth on the train. You also see animals and rats coming out from under the train, which also give me Dracula vibes. But yeah, so I guess maybe we'll get more, because this was shot back to back with Nia DaCosta's sequel, The Bone Temple. So maybe we'll get a little bit more of that fleshed out, which I don't know. But yeah, I feel like there were so many elements introduced that it's a little bit jarring.
So when Jamie and Spike return, Jamie is telling everyone at the party, like, oh, Spike, he was a hero. He killed all these infected, which is not true. In fact, Spike kind of flubbed a lot of his opportunities. So he's confused, like, why is my dad lying to everyone? And then Spike actually becomes sick to his stomach, thinking that everyone thinks he was a hero. So when he goes to see his mom finally, he tells her, like, they're all lying. And that's when I thought, oh, snap, is this going to be like The Village?
Or something psychologically menacing.
But no, it's just that, like, I don't understand why they're afraid of Ralph Fiennes.
Well, the story that we tell that Aaron Taylor Johnson says 15 years prior, they saw him burning all these bodies, which
would make sense, wouldn't it? That you would want to
burn these infected
bodies.
And he's like saying he's insane. It's like, well, that's why you can't trust these people to diagnose shit in this movie. But the element with the child Spike kind of realizing that his dad might have ulterior motives, or, you know, being an adult that's not telling him everything, was giving me Fallen Idol vibes as well with Ralph Richardson, the Carol Reed film.
Okay, Isla, the mom, she's just a little too damn crazy. She acts so crazy that for most of the movie, until we realize what's wrong with her, I thought that maybe she had a variant of the rage virus. Because we see when she first gets to the mainland, there are also infected who look like, is it Dune? Those fat...
The Stellan Skarsgård, the Baron, what's his name?
They look like that.
The Harkonnens.
They look like that. And they're really slow. And so at a point, one of them almost kills Spike while the mom is sleeping. But then we get a flashback and realize that the mom brutally killed that thing and didn't know it. So then I thought, oh, maybe she has the variant that allows her to detect and not get infected by... I don't know.
Like an Alien 3?
Well, I mean, it's just like there's so many things. Maybe with the next movie, some things will be answered, but...
I thought they were going to say she had a tumor and the doctor was going to operate on her brain. The way how crazy this film seems.
I wrote down Mortal Kombat because the Alpha likes to kill animals and people by ripping their heads off, and then their head is attached to their vertebra.
There's also Predator.
Or Predator.
That's what he does.
Again, the Alpha who we see naked has a very large penis. It's kind of funny.
Kind of. You know how everybody was in a fear over Watchmen back in 2009? Like, I think this is a lot more distracting. But again, it's fitting with this kind of gonzo energy that it has.
So the Swedish soldier, Eric, he provides the comedic relief because he's this guy who is stuck on this island because his boat capsized, and he's telling little jokes. He's frustrated. He witnesses Isla being crazy, so he's like, great, now I'm dealing with this. But I think the funniest moment with that character is Spike doesn't know anything about modern technology because he's always been isolated. And Eric is telling stories about like internet and like basically Amazon. Of course, the kid doesn't know. But Eric has his cell phone that's about to die, but he's trying to show Spike, look at this picture. And it's of his girlfriend. And she looks like a clone of every other girl who thinks she looks like Kim Kardashian with like a puffy face.
Puffy everything.
And Spike says, what's wrong with her? And Eric gets offended and he's like, oh, I think I know. There's a girl on the island who's allergic to shellfish. So when she eats it, she gets puffy. I mean, I thought that was funny.
That is what they look like. But yeah. I was just thinking the vibe of this, when it's in a serious mode, was reminding me of a classic Mick Jackson film about nuclear warfare called Threads, which if you've never seen it, I recommend that.
I guess my biggest head scratcher was Ralph Fiennes' character has been on the mainland building this memorial.
Memento Mori. Yeah.
Made of the bones of the dead. So all those bodies that were in a row that Aaron Taylor Johnson's character saw 13 years ago, he was preparing those to then burn and make these monuments. So first of all, it looks like it would have taken an army of people to do this thing.
And he only has one little stove.
He has one little stove, one little process that looks like it would take hours.
Yeah.
But there has to be like 100,000 bones. So I don't know. There's not enough time to do all that. But
Bodies.
so then I'm thinking, oh, do the bones or the dead bodies deter the infected from entering his space? But we find out, no, they just walk right into it. So how is he able? Then we find out that he uses a combination of like morphine and some other like paralytic to like subdue the infected. Where is he getting that from? How much supply did he have that 13 years later he still has some? I don't know. While I thought Ralph Fiennes was a breath of fresh air and the subsequent, like, it was a very emotional scene when he euthanizes the mom.
Sure.
But how he's persisting on the mainland, I have so many questions. And I'm assuming based on the title of the next movie, maybe it will be explained.
I don't know. There were a lot of questions. He subdues Samson, because he gave him that name.
Oh.
And then doesn't kill him, because Samson comes back and tries to...
that made zero sense.
I don't know why. You have him completely anesthetized.
And Dr. Kelson says, oh yeah, this one's kind of scary. He's been around for 3 years. Okay, he's standing there paralyzed. Why don't you decapitate him? Like, why would you keep him around?
That doesn't, because there's a very close call where he almost kills Ralph Fiennes later, and then he gets anesthetized again. And I'm assuming that they didn't make the choice that would be logical. And also, the Christmas tree of skulls, because that's what it looks like, they're just skulls stacked on skulls on skulls on skulls. And I don't understand what is holding them together, because Jodie Comer's little head gets put on top like an angel. The first stiff wind or crow or anything is going to knock her head right off. So I don't know how this edifice is remaining intact.
I know we're doing a lot of complaining, but I do think overall, I did enjoy this movie because I do like weird Gonzo things, and I would much rather have someone go balls to the wall,
sure, of course,
than to make some like basically like a remake of the last film or the first film. You know, like they really went in a very different direction. So
there's just a lot of questions. So in the trailer, there's a very creepy recording of the Rudyard Kipling poem Boots, which was written during the Second Boer War, and that is used in training. But that particular recording is from 1915 by an actor named Taylor Holmes. And the trailer for this film was fantastic. And they use it again, and I think it's less effective in the film.
Yeah, it's spellbinding in the trailer, but in the film, it feels very... I don't know, a lot of these scenes feel very jarring. Like, oh, we're doing this right now. And because along with that poem being read, we see visuals of soldiers training from like...
Yeah, it looked like, I don't know what film clip they were using. It looked like Olivier in one sequence. But there's subconsciously, I think, a lot of weird things going on, because Rudyard Kipling, talented scribe of some iconic classics such as The Jungle Book that he was also a racist. I mean, that's where we get the term and idea about what white man's burden is. And also, I think with how some of the survivors look and the boneyard, there's just a lot that I think is food for thought that I think could make it for an interesting, deeper analysis. So I'm curious to see what else they're going to do. And especially with, on top of that, this cherry on the cake is the Jack O'Connell cult. Like, it's just so bizarre. Like,
but I mean, it was kind of a pleasant Gonzo surprise.
Especially, because I thought...
And the score that accompanied it.
I thought he was excellent in Sinners as well. So,
What would you give 28 Years Later?
I'm going to give it a 3.
I'm also going to give it 3 out of 5.
We didn't even bring up Alex Garland, who wrote the script, who I think is a fantastic writer. So anyway, but yeah.
Join us on Patreon and listen to our podcast. Bye.